Hi, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joyofbaking.com. Today we're going to make oatmeal raisin cookies, and this is what they look like. This cookie is so good. The outside edges of the cookies are wonderfully crisp, yet in the centers are soft and chewy, and they taste buttery sweet with lots of rolled oats and raisins. So the first thing that you will need to do is preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 180 degrees Celsius. And then you will need 2 baking sheets. I've lined mine with parchment paper, but you could just lightly butter them or even spray them with one of those non-stick sprays. So for the batter, if you have a stand mixer like I have here, use your paddle attachment. You could use a hand mixer or really just a large bowl with either a wooden spoon or a spatula and just mix it together that way. The first thing that you will need is 1 cup, which is 225 grams of butter. I'm using unsalted butter, and you have your butter at room temperature. As always, I use unsalted butter because 1, I like the flavor, and 2, depending on the brand, if you use salted butter, depending on the brand, the salt can vary. But if you have a favorite salted butter that you really like, you could use that. Just leave out the salt in the recipe. So I have my butter, and then we're going to add 1 cup, 200 grams of light brown sugar. If you're not weighing your ingredients, with brown sugar, make sure you tap it into your measuring cup because it's quite soft. And then I'm adding 1/3 cup, 65 grams of granulated white sugar. Mine is not white, it's a little off-white, and that's because it's organic, but you can use either type. And then for flavoring, I'm adding 1 teaspoon, 4 grams of pure vanilla extract. If you don't want a vanilla flavor, you could just leave out that, vanilla. So now I'm going to beat this just on like medium speed, medium high, just until everything's mixed together and a little bit of air into the batter. Okay, we are done. And as always, when you're making batters, every once in a while stop and then scrape down the sides and the bottom of your bowl. Make sure everything gets mixed together, especially the bottom, the bowl. So that's what we're looking for, just everything all mixed together, a little bit of air beaten in there. So now we are going to add 2 large eggs. Have your eggs at room temperature. A large egg is about 50 grams, so 2 large eggs be about 100 grams. And I'm just going to put 1 in, beat that in, and then add the second one. Okay. Scrape. So now, in a separate bowl, I have 1½ cups, which is 195 grams of all-purpose flour or plain flour. To that, I'm adding 1 teaspoon, 4 grams of baking soda. Besides leavening, the baking soda helps to make the outside of our cookies nice and crisp. And then I'm adding 1 teaspoon, 4 grams of a fine kosher salt. If you can use a table salt, but I would probably use a little less than a teaspoon. Did I say teaspoon? A teaspoon of kosher salt. Maybe ½ teaspoon, 2 grams of a table salt. Because I find, I don't know, maybe it's just me, I find a table salt tastes a little more salty than a kosher salt. So. And I'm adding, I love ground cinnamon in my oatmeal cookies, so I'm adding ½ teaspoon of ground cinnamon. If you don't like cinnamon in your cookies, just leave it out. The other thing I like about the ground cinnamon is it kind of colors the cookies a pretty brown. So I'm just using a wire whisk to mix that together. You could use just a fork. And so I'm going to just dump that in. We will also need it's oatmeal cookies. So we will need 3 cups, which is 260 grams of rolled oats. I'm using the old fashioned. There's like an old fashioned and then there's a quick cooking. The difference is the thickness of the oats. I like the old fashioned because it's thicker and then that gives you a more chewy cookie. If you don't have the old fashioned or you don't like them, you could use quick cooking, but of course your cookies won't be as chewy. So I'm just going to put that right in there. And of course raisins, 1 cup, which is 140 grams of raisins. I'm using the golden raisins today. You could also use like the dark Thompson raisins. You could use a combination of the two. You could probably add some currants if you want to do that. So just right in there. This recipe, as you can see, it's a lot. We're going to get like about 20 of these this size cookie. If you think that's a little too much, you could just half the recipe. And when I say half the recipe, that means just half every ingredient. So now I'm going to slowly mix this together. Okay, we are done. Lots of batter here. But these cookies freeze really well. So that's what I like to do. Make lots, freeze them, and then you can just, when you feel like a cookie, you can just take one out. Okay, so now to form our cookies. I'm going to just put this in. Excuse me. To form the cookies, as you can see, I like mine fairly large. Somehow, I used to make them really small, but then one isn't enough. So I make them bigger so I don't feel so guilty. I only have 1 cookie. I know, I'm only fooling myself, aren't I? Okay. So I'm using 1/4 cup of batter for each cookie. Of course, if you wanted to, you could make them smaller. So you can either use like 1/4 cup, or if you have a cookie scoop that's about 1/4 cup, or what I actually like to do is weigh. Each one weighs about 60. Boy, that was about right. 60 grams. So I'm going to put, because they do spread, so I'm going to put, you could probably fit 6. I'm going to put 4, just to make sure. Then I'll see how much they spread, and then next time, my second sheet, I could maybe put a little more. So now, because they're rounded like this, what I like to do is just lightly dampen my fingers with a little bit of water, and then just press it down to get rid of that mound. Like that. Okay, we are ready to bake our cookies. I'm going to say somewhere between 13 and 16 minutes. Everyone's oven is a little different, and it also depends how you like your oatmeal cookies. For me, what I like is that the outside edges, they will be set and they'll be nice and kind of a dark brown, but the centers of the cookies are still soft, because I like mine crisp edges, soft and chewy centers. If you prefer your cookie like more the whole cookie to be crisp, of course you're going to bake them, a minute or 2 longer than the way I like it. So, a lot of times what I do, especially if this is the first time you're making the cookies, you could do like just bake 2 cookies at first and then just see, so you can get the baking time down and like how you like your oatmeal cookies. But I'm going to say 13 to 16 minutes. I do like to rotate my baking sheet front to back about halfway for like more an even bake. Okay, so our oatmeal raisin cookies are done. So put your baking sheet on a wire rack. So, don't they look good? They did spread some. The outside, as you can see, it's a little darker brown, and if I touch it, it feels firm. Yet in the centers here, they're actually a little lighter in color, just a little, and they're soft, just how I like them. So they're quite fragile right now, so I'm going to let them cool in the pan, maybe 5 minutes, and then I'll take my spatula and move them over to a wire rack to finish cooling. And then when we come back, we will try one. Okay, we are ready to try one. They're still a little warm, which is what I like. Actually, I like them warm, room temperature, cold. I love the edges, like I said, nice and crisp. They're buttery sweet. Because we use lots of oats, so it's a good chew. And then the raisins, like I said, I use the golden raisins today, but you could use the Thompson, the dark raisins. You could use a combo. You could even add some currants in there. You could add some dried cherries, or really, you don't even have to add raisins. You can kind of play with it. You could add some nuts, some chopped nuts if you like that. So, like most cookies, these are, I think they're at their best the day they're made. But you know what? They will soften if you store them overnight, but they are still really good. And like I said before, you can freeze them. A really good cookie this will make, I think it's around 20 cookies, so a good size, half the recipe. And if you go to the joybaking.com website or our YouTube channel, I kind of like oatmeal cookies, so I have a few others. I have another one kind of like this, but it has a little bit of honey, so it gives it a little more softy, chewy texture. I actually have a crispy oatmeal cookie, which has some rice cereal, which gives it a really nice crunch to it. I like that too. So check out that. Just check out the website, more videos. And you must try this. And until next time, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com.